Hello, hello, and welcome to Awaken Your Human Design. My name is Moni. This is my wonderful co-host, Danny. And today we're continuing our PHS, the Primary Health Systems and Human Design, and we're continuing today with environment.
Can't wait. Down you go, Willie. He just hopped up, what to do. Who's in charge here after all?
The cats. We know the cats are in charge.
The kitty cat. Well, no, environment's good. There's a lot of good insights. Environment holds that beautiful link node after all. And environment, one could argue, is really sets up the entirety of the correctness of the movement that lets everything else see and live in the first place. So we'll get into it.
Super exciting. Well, thank you to everyone who is watching and liking and subscribing and commenting and asking us questions and being here with us while we go through all this fun stuff. We love having you, and let's get into it.
Like and subscribe.
So, environment within human design, this is about your body being in the correct physical space. And being in that correct physical space is what's allowing you to digest food, process experiences, and live in alignment. And this is determined by the nodal design color. Color we talked about a couple weeks ago, so check out that episode if you haven't yet. But basically, if you look at the bottom left arrow, there's numbers, and you're looking at the medial, the most center number, and it's in a circle. It's in like an orange circle. And so that's color. And so it's that bottom left, which is your environment color.
Yeah, and so just like with dietary regimen, when in the PHS, and when we get into the rave psychology side with the personality and the view, color is this thing that moves and creates the conduit by which we juxtapose what we need in order to understand it. We don't understand daytime until we understand nighttime. We don't understand that our tires are grip the road until we experience skidding, right? Things like that. And this is experiencing skidding, these colors in a way, because when you first start seeing it and you either are or are not aligned to it, there's some skidding going on. So, yep, that's color.
Super cool. So here we have our environment chart. If you've ever looked up environment human design, you will see a chart like this. So this is our little pretty version of it. So we can kind of give a little overview before we're going to go into each of these 6 environments separately on the upcoming pages. So we wanted to give kind of a peripheral overview and primarily also explain this at the bottom left here. You have 1 through 3 are hardscapes and 4 through 6 are landscapes. I wanted you to talk about that.
Well, that and the orientation, the observer or the observed, they sort of go together. But hardscapes and landscapes are a delineation, just like conditions and circumstances were to, or circumstances and conditions were to, a dietary regimen. So hardscape fits with the evolution, that our whole evolution, our environmental evolution is us coming from caves. That's why you see caves at the bottom. They're 1 to 6. And it moves through these marketplaces, these kitchens. It creates a hardscape. It's like you chiseled out. It's this thing. And then the landscapes are more have a view because it's transpersonal. You get above into the 3rd trigram, you start to see across it all. You start to see more, the mountain sees out across. If you're in a valley, you're still seeing across the valley because that's what's going on there. Same thing with shores. You're looking out over the shore into foreverness, really. Which is a good 6-line attribute. So that's the difference between the two. And then the observer and the observed, rightness and leftness again, right? The active principle, the principle of movement, active, focused, strategicness. In this case, the observed, because they're the one in movement, meaning if it's a left arrow, there's strategically some activity going on by which they are observed because they're doing something in it. So if you got a left arrow, you're healthy, busy in your environment, one way, shape, or form. And then the observer is exactly the opposite. They're observing what's going on in the environment. So again, the yin and the yang, we need them both always. One juxtaposes to the other, and then consciousness grows. So one is laying back and not getting too busy, and one is like, in it, being that. And we need both of them. And then they help delineate what this environment is. Folks, environment is very important. When you get to the nodes, there are, I don't know if you can go back a slide. It's so important because what's going on here, if you look at the two nodes on the actually this doesn't work because it doesn't have the two gate names. Never mind, just move back. Just understand that this, as part of the nodes, the nodal environment begins the movement we have. The nodal environment links us over to the fact that what we will see. That's why environment, as much as anything, can pollute anything. This is part of our outside circumstances, our outside body. Whereas the mind, the brain system, and how we take in food is part of the internal, system landscape of what we're doing. So nodes set up our movement. They get set up from our environment, not from our view. That's why it's so important, and they link to this whole thing. If we look at a body graph where we can see the actual two gates of the nodes on the environment side, we'll see how they link and create a storyline through a link node that these nodes are at. Don't forget, what does gate 2 do? It hooks into the direction like a trolley car. It hooks into the line of geometry set up by that monopole, and that geometry is defined through the 4 gates of your nodes, starting with your environment. So environment's wicked important. And
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and just as like the recap, because it's like last week we talked about digestion, determination, and human design, which is about your brain, the physical brain, getting the right nutrients so it can take in from the food the right nutrients, the right stuff from what you're taking in that mental brain body kind of way. And then we move into the environment so that your physical body is in the correct environment for how you're going to be existing. And then you bring in like the left arrow, right arrow. So left arrow is basically like busybody. Just to keep it real simple, it's like they're more busy, they're more doing stuff. Whereas the right arrow is maybe more chill. And it doesn't mean you don't move ever, but it's more like chill movements. It's Tai Chi compared to, doing repeat backflips, maybe, let's say, right? It's
compared to the octagon and cage fighting, right?
Yeah, it's like more calmer movements. And then like hardscapes, it's almost like hardscapes are almost like you're going into a thing, and landscapes are more like wide, environmental, like going out into nature kind of thing.
It's a perfect way to view it. These things get broken up and they represent our movement through our evolution through to present. At present, we're learning to see out across it all as it relates to shores. Our shores puts us level with Earth. It's just such an amazing place. You're at sea level when you're at shores, basically. So you're at the level of where you're level with Earth in a way, and that's an amazing place for transition. But what are we doing next? Are we going through all of these like directly? So, or is there a blurb we read on them?
No, so next we're going to go through like number 1 and talk about number 1, and then we'll go through 2.
Got you. Well, then let me just sort of run through these just as the keynote names go. In the beginning, there were caves. There was an entrance. There was only one. And whether you were blending or selective is something we'll discuss in a moment. One of them could have a little bit more than one entrance, but it was still one safe place with your back against the wall. Markets are exactly what they sound like. This is where activity happens. We finally start doing stuff. Hey, I got some extra rocks if you got something else, and the market starts, right? And they're trading rocks. I love it. I traded rocks when I was 4. And then we're finally making stuff, and things get a little more advanced. Kitchens are where synthesis takes place. So we are making stuff. So instead of rocks, it's like after I crushed them, I mixed them with this and get a spark from that thing over there. We have gunpowder. So we're concocting things. And wet and dry are the 2 themes there, because you do need both. Humanity is a this and a that is the thing. You need them both. And then we move into sort of the ways. Before it was the circumstances and then the conditions. And circumstances is like hardscapes, and the conditions is like landscapes. And so the landscapes of mountains, this active, passive. And it is a determiner, transformer, gatherer, hunter. If you notice, those line up with what we read from before. And the determiner is they're fixed. They determine a particular way through activity or passivity. This gives the keynote to the observed and the observer. It gives part of it. The active principle of the observed and the passive principle of the observer. Go figure, it's a fourth line process. And when you get to valleys, obviously narrow and wide, they are listening for what is going to, this is, by the way, the level up of markets. It's the harmony to markets. Valleys is where all the markets are. Second line, interpersonal, personal destiny. Third line is where, hey, Artemis, is where just your market is. And the valleys is where your market and all the other markets are a larger market. And so the wider the valley, the more open and receptive and passive and observed was the being who was in it to observe the more, in a way. And that would be you, Moni. Yeah. And then shores. Shores is it's just artificial or natural. When you're the observer, it doesn't actually have to be a shoreline. It can be something that resembles a shoreline. And when you're the natural shorelines for left, you're busy, you're in it. So natural is better. These are environments you should be in. Get there. And very few of them are a place. Exactly a place. Shores would be pretty close to a place, but mountains could be just taller, higher up in your house. There's a lot of different options.
Yeah, it's like a frequency more than necessarily you have to be on top of a mountain.
Yep.
Danny, I think your video went away. There we go.
So cool. Let's move on to explaining them.
Yeah, let's get into it. So number one is caves, which is the hunter in our digestion series from last week. So if caves is your environment, caves are enclosed, protected, and private spaces that feel safe and contained, where you can control the access and feel sheltered from external chaos. This can literally be a cave or a cozy, secluded bedroom. If you have this as a left arrow, this is selective. These are highly controlled, selective environments where you can choose who or what enters your space, and you prefer minimal external input and a highly curated setting. On the flip side, if this is a right arrow, it's blending. It's a blended cave. And these are cave-like spaces, but more open to blending. And you're comfortable with some external influences as long as the space feels enclosed and secure.
Yep. So you put these two things together, and what the rightness is it's open and receptive to a little extra, but not much. It's still what it is it's leftness with a little bit of liberalism added in, just a little bit looser on the rules. Yep. It's really all it is. It's still a cave. It's still, you got your back to the wall if you need to. It's still a place that you could secure the one entrance. And it's still a place, if your kid has caves, don't have a closet door that doesn't have like a poster over it or something at night. Something to just cover it up. Yep. So that's caves. It's very simple. So set yourself up in this. You'll have an apartment where there's one door in and it's your apartment. And then you go upstairs and you hang a left into your apartment, you close your door, that's your cave. Your cars can be caves, even though there's multiple doors in, you lock most of them or all of them. And then now you're in charge of the way in type thing. Anything where you control the way in, and therefore, as an investigator, you control the amount of scrutiny upon you while you're investigating. So it's a way to allow your view on the other side to do whatever it's going to do to aid in some form of an investigation about your movement, because your environment sets up your movement in life.
Pretty solid. Yeah, I mean, caves feel very simple. It's the kid that you find like hiding in the crawl space or like hiding in their closet in like a pile of clothes or something.
Totally.
Perfect.
Yep.
Ready, Mosey? So when we get to color 2, this is the market. In digestive determination, this was the gatherer. And market environment is a bustling, interactive space of exchange, activity, and diversity. And this can be a marketplace or a busy urban setting that stimulates the senses and aligns with the need for connection and variety. When this is a left arrow, it is an internal market. And this is a market-like setting, but focuses inward, engaging selectively with the environment, and it might enjoy the energy of a busy place, but prefer to observe or interact minimally. On the flip side, if this is the right arrow, it's an external market, which is fully immersing yourself in the market's energy, engaging outwardly with people, sounds, and activities, and enjoying the hustle and bustle to feel energized by the interaction.
And when we get to valleys, for which this is the harmony, we'll see why internal and narrow make sense and external and wide make sense. So we're in a cave. Now there's markets in our evolution. We're marketing now, and the cave becomes a market. That's the indoor markets, internal. And it's literally indoor. In today's day and age, it's make a business out of your home. Mm-hmm. Essentially, and you can still got a cave-like area. You still control sort of what comes in. You're still there. And then when you get to the right side, the external markets, it's on the outside of the cave. So in front of the cave, you got your next market where you can see stuff. People are coming and going. It's wider, more expansive. It's an outdoor marketplace. Either way, it is the beginning of our metropolitan pursuits over time, right? Our coming together to commune, just like when we get into the communalist and the separatist as it relates to our motivations. That would be a line one thing. And here this would be theist and anti-theist over there. It's so these correlations, they all keep working, but as it relates to your environment, if you're in markets, it's either outside, maybe not all that far from home, or inside, which is the continuation of cave. And so just sort of get used to that. You're supposed to be in more places, maybe not, right? Oh, you're not marketing right. You got to get more business, and you can maybe a little bit of that, but maybe not as much as you might think, right? Because I'm an internal market environment. I've had my business out of my home the whole time, controlling things with slight cave, like liberal cave policies. Yeah, you can sort of come and go. Yeah, I'm closing the doors, that type of thing. So to wall off. These are the beginning binary, just like in beginning, the rigid. This is the rigid binary of just like when we were in, our dietary regimen, when we were in how we eat. So that makes, do you remember that, where we had the three binaries? Rigid was the one and the two. Energetic was energetic, something, I forgot the other word.
Manipulative.
Manipulative, thank you. Yeah, beautiful word. Yep.
And then the last one was what, selective?
Selective and transitional or something.
Yeah.
And so that, again, those binary names and keynotes sort of basically hold true here. This is the rigid aspect of it. It's like a cave, or it's my internal space, doors, location, there's a number on it. It is a hardscape. There's hard walls. It's this thing and me in it.
That makes sense with the hardscapes. It's like it's a thing and you're in this thing. I like that.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes sense because it's like caves are simple. It's like first dwelling, cave, hide out from the elements, be safe. And then the second one is like, cool, you're safe. And now you have something to share or trade or barter with. And like even how that works with like the digestion too, where it's like the color 2 digestion is like, what did you find at the market? Like what's in season? Like it just, it's neat how they line up.
Right. And when you're in a market, you're at the whim of the market forces. It's no different than the seasons themselves. So absolutely.
Super cool. Ready to mosey?
Mm-hmm.
Now we move on to color 3, which is kitchens. And this is the transformer. And kitchens are warm, nurturing spaces associated with food preparation, community, and sustenance. And these are environments where transformation happens. So if it's a left arrow, it is wet kitchens. And these are lush, humid, or water-rich environments that feel nurturing and fluid. Moisture supports your alignment. I always think of like a New Orleans like restaurant kitchen is kind of like what I think of with like a wet kitchen. And on the flip side, we have right, which is dry. And these are drier, more arid environments that feel crisp and clean. Dryness supports your clarity. And so it's kind of interesting because kitchens are about transformation. So it can literally be a kitchen, but it can also be a laboratory or, you know, a crafting studio. I have a friend who has dry kitchens, and he's a metal worker.
Your
And
computer station
yeah.
is your kitchen for it's a place of creativity, the ultimate third line creativity. Remember, the profiles begin with 3 and end with 3. The third line is the manipulative, the adaptive, the transformer, the changer. It's in the keynote here, the transformer. What are they transforming? This is a synthesis of material things, a synthesis of people coming together, not coming together, coming together and then getting kicked apart. All of that is being cooked up in the kitchen. So the kitchen is this overall catch-all keynote. If your environment is kitchens, wherever it is you do your work, wherever it is you put things together, wherever it is your best thinking is going to take place, or that spot where you're going to know you're at ease, it's going to resemble a wet kitchen. So if it's your computer station, you got stuff everywhere, literally. And if it's right dry, that's more cleaned off. It might still be a mess, but it's only paper. There's not drinks everywhere and this and that and maybe even in the kitchen. If you're a place that makes a diner that just hurries up with everyone's custom breakfast in the morning, you know, they make it on the spot. You're wet, you've got all your ingredients literally dripping and waiting to fall on it, and you don't mind, and the grease can stay on and move over here. And this, if you're dry, you're in much more control of all of that. And there's always a little bit of flour handy to dry the surface off and make it right. It's just a drier thing. It's literally, you'll see it in the wet and the dry of them. So we're water. We're mostly water, and this is the transformative acknowledgement of that, is really what this is. So let's acknowledge that human body in their wet place, water world, one way, shape, or form, or on land, dry world, one way, shape, or form. And in so doing so, it's going to transform and make stuff, and it's going to concoct things, and it's going to synthesize this with that, and relationships will be made here. Babies get made in the kitchen, you know, they get made potentially anywhere, but I'm just saying things are bumping into things here. So it's a place of not just mutative transformation, but it's a transformation of a woman's womb from flat into a big round belly. You know, it's like, it's all transforming, transformations.
It's really cool. And even like when you're baking something, it's like you have your wet ingredients and your dry ingredients. Like it's really that simple of like, if you're mixing things together, sometimes you mix dry stuff, sometimes you mix the wet stuff, sometimes you mix them together. But yeah, that just makes a lot of sense.
The dry person's always wanting their hands dry when they're working with the wet. The wet person doesn't really care and has a hard time keeping the dry stuff dry. Or cares a little bit less, shall I say, and that, you know.
Yeah, I imagine somebody like manipulating clay and like making a vase or something like that.
Right, and the wet person wants that clay through the water, because you do water work with clay, and the other one says, no, 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 I'll dry it out. I'm going to do it differently here.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Super cool. Mosey?
Mosey, yep.
So next up, we have color 4, which is mountains and the determiner. Mountains are elevated, expansive spaces that offer perspective and clarity and provides a sense of overview and detachment from the chaos below. If this is a left arrow, it is an active mountain, and these are mountain-like spaces where you can be active and engaged, hiking, exploring, or working in a high-energy elevated setting. On the flip side, you have the right arrow, and these are passive mountains. And these are mountain-like spaces where you can be still and reflective, soaking in the expansive view.
The expansive view is what right-minded, what right view people do. When you get over to the right, to the view, where you view the movement. But this is setting up the movement. And this passive look over everything is very reminiscent to its harmony in line 1. Caves didn't want to look over anything. We were happy in our cave. Mountains are, no, we're totally out on top of the cave, way on top, now looking out over everything. We've had our foundation. We've been through our markets and our kitchens, and now we're looking out over all of that. It's almost the beginning of industry in a way. But mountains is technically a height thing. You are sort of higher up. If you have a mountains thing, being higher up is actually important to you, even just in your dwelling and where you are. And you'll notice when you go down deep into a valley and you're low on a basement floor, you're not happy. Please see that. Whereas the kitchens or the markets person might be up high, they might be down low. They're going to be fine if they feel at home in that environment. But so the active environments, the mountains-like spaces, is they're moving in it. So what's in mountains? There's a certain ruggedness in mountains. There's a terrain that moves up and down. This is about the fixedness to take what we just synthesized in line 3 and move it across the plain and move it across what will be valleys next. So basically, what got brewed in the kitchen is about to be in the mountains and come down from the mountains into the valleys. This is part of that movement. After we got out of caves, we didn't go straight to valleys and be like, let's mix it up way out in the open, right? We stepped out in front of the cave and then we started mixing stuff. And by the way, much of that kitchen was back in a cave. So at plenty, while we're evolving through that because it's all hardscape. They didn't just reinvent the cave, but they started to. And then there would be outbuildings and other things, and now finally we ditched the cave altogether. We in the mountain, people built homes. This is the beginning of truly building the homes.
And like seeing what's out there.
Yeah.
Because cave is very like, scary, danger, be safe. And then it's like market, like, okay, you start opening it up, you start seeing what's nearby. Kitchens, you're mixing stuff up. And then it's like mountains, it really makes sense because now you're like, okay, I need to get because 4 and 1 are linked up. So
I'm
it's like
out of the cave and above it now.
To see over, like, hey, what else is out there? Like a valley is already it makes sense that valley is the next one because a valley is almost more vulnerable. You can see into a valley. If you're on the top of the mountain, you see out over everybody. So it makes sense with that 4 and 1 kind of link where like the 1 is insecure and the 4 is also like redeveloping its foundation from that initial foundation.
Yep.
That makes sense because I kind of never understood. I was like, why is mountains 4 and shores 6? Like I thought mountains would be like higher up because you're looking out over and like, oh no, that actually makes sense to me now. So that's really cool.
It's harmony to the caves.
Yeah.
Yep. And by the way, if there wasn't a mountain to go to, they built them. When the Mayans were here doing stuff, we were entering into the 4th
pyramids,
not necessarily into the 4th line, but we're starting to carry forward into doing what is going to be 4th line stuff. You know what I'm saying? We're already with that part of our evolution is well underway because we're already in valleys, pasture foods, and you know what I mean, raising up stuff and creating farming and all of that. So that is the valley. And then after you've done all that work, you go to the shore, essentially. So, hey, head to the beach. That's a 6 line thing when we get there.
Once we get there, let's just stick with the mountains for now.
First, the mountains. The mountains are they're above the cave, and it's like, don't worry, sweetie, I'm on the perch on the mountain today. I'll know anything that comes anywhere near our cave. Where plenty of our markets still are, where I have fond memories of plenty of synthesis did take place inside and outside of that cave in the kitchen. And now I'm up here building a new foundation that's going to have momentum to move from the mountain down.
That makes sense. I have Ika, my boyfriend, is a active mountain. And we also have another friend who is a passive mountain.
He's always moving over terrain.
Constantly. And especially like when we're at a party or, we do a lot of like event production, party production kind of stuff. And so he's like part of people who are building things and checking things out. I mean, he is constantly like doing his loops, checking things out, keeping an eye on everything. And especially when there's like a loft or something, he's like up in the loft, taking a look, making sure everything's cool, but he's always moving around with it. Whereas like we have another friend who is a passive mountain. And she'll like perch up on the top and she'll just like hang out.
She's happy enough just knowing she's on a mountain.
Yeah, and she'll keep like an eye out, but she's like up and away and in the corner, and you almost don't notice her. Whereas he's always moving around, being an active mountain, where she's like a passive mountain, still on the loft, still looking out, still making sure everything's good and checking that her friends are safe and everything is okay. But it's very, very obviously distinct with the active and the passive mountain in a fun
Right.
way.
And another important thing about the mountains is you are outside. You are not in a cave. You are out of the cave. And even when you just read through the lines, this will make more sense as it relates to the valleys, but even that. So too is just like here, looking out over things, the passive as it relates to marketplaces, outdoor markets versus indoor markets. But you'll see these harmonies as we move up to the 5 and the 6. But you're outside of the cave. You're outside. You're out.
You're out
You're
of the
built.
thing. The
You're
first
out
three
of
are
the
like a
thing.
thing, and now
Right.
you're out of the thing. You've moved beyond the thing.
Right. Right. That's why you're in a landscape. You're not part of a hardscape.
That's cool.
Yep. Yep.
Awesome, Mosey.
Hmm.
Now we are on color 5, which is valleys, and this is the listener. And valleys are grounded, contained spaces that feel nestled and secure. And these are environments that provide a sense of being held and supported by the earth. If it's a left valley, it's a narrow valley. And these are tight, focused, valley-like spaces where you feel contained and protected. Narrow spaces help you focus. On the flip side, we have the right arrow, and this is a wide valley. And these are broader, more open valley-like spaces that still feel grounded but allow for expansiveness.
Again, think of how much this mirrors the right and the left of view. Each of these words and these keynotes are exactly what we would think of when we move over to the right and get into the view on the personality side. We're not there yet. That'll be next. But these things also totally mirror. This is where I wanted to bring up the second line, the indoor and outdoor marketplaces, internal, external. Wide is far more like the external, more expansive, and indoor slash internal is far more the narrow. But the valley is a place of commerce where all the commerce is taking place, all the individual marketplaces of this guy and this guy's home and that guy's thing and this guy's flea market and that guy's outside tag sale and this guy's muffler shop. All those things are now part of a larger valley. And everyone knows everyone in the valley. I live in Pioneer Valley. Valleys are one of the most named things there are, right? Death Valley.
Well,
The
because like it's
valley.
easier to live in a valley than on a mountain. It's harder
It
to
is,
bring your
yes.
supplies. It's hard to get water and electricity and stuff like that. So you're going
Right.
to more likely be living in a valley.
Right, right, exactly. Because now that you've surveyed all the terrain, you are out in it, and now it's time to come into where there is more water, by the way. You know, valleys tend to be where there is like you got a river running through it
Yeah.
potentially. Although you could have plenty of water in the mountains too. Who am I kidding? But
But
so
but
anyways,
generally though, like if it's a valley, like if there's gonna more likely to have a river in a valley by the nature of like water erodes things. But it's like,
right,
yeah, you can have a spring, you can have water in the mountain, but it's still gonna be easier if you're building like a city and a town. You can build a house in the mountain. It's harder to build a town. It's easier to build a town in a valley.
right, exactly. So we get into this wide and this narrow, and it's exactly as it sounds. The narrow one wants to move more into the ravine first, and because they are strategic and they're still tied into the old way. By the way, this is all about our connection to the old, the strategic, and our movement forward into what we really are, which is the open receptive. Excuse me, what we're moving into, that thing that we have within us. So the open receptive wants it a little bit wider because it brings more possible things to happen. It just brings more to fill what rightness does, takes everything in. If you're only got a thin slice in a ravine, there's not the same amount to take in. You'll go crazy if you're a wide valleys person. And if you're narrow, um, too much expansiveness is no good. However, narrow can totally move itself to some degree into something a little bit wider as it is truly comfortable. It'll still see its own little patch as narrow. So it's not like they're not adaptive. We've gotten through that. We've already been through a third line adaptiveness. We've been through a determined fourth line that says we're going to be in a valley one way or another. We got out of a cave. We've made markets in the first place. Go figure, the second line makes business start. Oops, I didn't know. It just, It's called into it. So apparently humanity is genetically designed to trade, share, and make business out of things, because there it was before, we were even talking all that well, technically. So, and then valleys become the spot where great fertility takes place and farms and ranches. And this is the beginning of true civilization, like the civilization we know. Fourth line is the beginning of it because it looks out over its civilization. It's starting to create aspects of it. It is certainly fixed, fixedness. However, the listener who listened to all of that said, no, 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 we need to get into the valley. So everyone, all you guys roll on down the hill because everyone's up in the hills. It wasn't that hard to find people. They just had to let gravity do the work. Down they came. Like literally, over time, except certain valleys that were populated all along. But so valleys, place to be.
I love my valleys. I'm a wide valley. And
Really?
yeah, I'm a wide valley, and I could totally tell the difference. And like valleys, the listener, it's related to sound. So even like I don't like earbuds, like I wear them for the sake of the microphone and everything. But even I don't know if you've heard of bone conduction headphones, and they sit on the outside and they like vibrate on like your facial ear bone, so you can hear it. And I love those.
Nice.
I love those. I don't like narrow houses or narrow corridors. I don't like little hallways and stuff like that. I love a wide open floor plan, that kind of stuff. It's a very cocooned, kind of like wide cocoon feeling. And if I am like in a wide valley in nature, I feel like I can hear better, and I feel just safe. I feel comfortable. I feel like everything is right, and I can properly understand my environment by the way the sound is coming in. Almost like I have like little antennas that can like feel into the frequencies and which way is the right way to go or the wrong way to go.
And the sound is what is the master frequency that dials into all the other frequencies, is sort of what you're pointing out. Valleys also is very much in line, keeping with the fifth line process. The valleys is where lots of art and beauty does start to take shape. It is where there is lots of practicalness. There also starts to have to be lawmen, and stuff like that. So that's becomes more of a thing. It's also the conditioner and the conditioned. It is the conditioner, and the master seductress is the valley. The valley was akin to what the big cities are, how they're so seductive to everyone who wants to, think about that. Not so much anymore, I might add, but that's just the way it's always worked out. The valley became a hub. And so even from in the mountains or caves or any place else, people would look upon valleys as, seductive. It is very fifth line, and the valley doesn't have to work hard to universalize, does it? Anyone from anywhere around at any elevation that's even a 20 feet above the valley can look several miles and see, oh, look, there's that thing over there.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to make its way through, like the universalization is going to work its way through. Yeah. And like that's the thing through too, like airflow and movement of ideas. Like I cannot be in a room without an open window or a fan or something moving the air. If I walk into a stagnant air room, like it's like shaky for me. I hate it. Like there's few things I hate more than like a stagnant room with no airflow moving around, or like I don't have any new ideas coming through. Like that stuff will drive me mad. And then I have one more like funny story, because I am a wide valley, but my boyfriend is an active mountain, which is a funny combination because valleys and mountains are kind of different. And when we did like a road trip out in Arizona a few years back, and we were driving all around to go to like Grand Canyon and Sedona and Antelope Canyon and all these places. And it was absolutely hilarious as we were going up and down an elevation, both driving from city to city where you're going up and down thousands of feet in elevation. And even when we did some hikes, when we were going up in elevation, he would feel better, my mountain environment, my mountain man, and I would start feeling worse. And then we would hike down, or we would drive down into whichever next valley town, and I would start feeling better, and mountain man would start feeling worse. And it was it was so funny. It was an absolutely immediate thing that we noticed with each other.
And I always loved coming into the valley it was such a big draw for me, and only when I found out, resonance and harmony, and I found out the meaning, the genetic meaning, and the movement, mechanical meaning of that, it made so much more sense. I've always allured myself into, it's always been so alluring to me.
Well, it always feels lush. Like even the picture, like the mountain picture is like, it's like, wow, it's impressive. And there's snow-peaked mountains, snow-capped mountains. Whereas like the valley is like, oh, it's so lush and I want to go there. And there's like life and something to do and see and people.
There's a saloon with a piano player. They're in the valley. The first full-on saloon with a piano player starts in valleys.
Yeah,
It
it's
didn't
lush.
quite,
It's welcoming.
it didn't start in mountains, or if it did, it was like not really, right?
Well, yeah, you'd first settle something in a valley and then maybe you go into the mountain and then you create a town in the mountain. But yeah, the first ones would be in the valleys. Like, yeah, I don't know. I love
Absolutely.
valleys to me are like lush cocoon, safe spaces where I'm like contained but open enough.
Well, and valleys are the harmony again to the marketplaces. So the second line sets up a little foundational stuff as it relates to what the fifth line is now going to totally build upon and receive that calling and universalize it. And again, valleys are the one thing that naturally, organically universalizes. It doesn't have to do anything. It's seen by everyone who's from anywhere around. They see, oh my God, there's a whole place over there. So it
Mhm.
universalizes itself.
Perfect. Mosey?
Hmm.
Finally, we move to color 6, which is shores and the watcher. Shores are transitional spaces where two elements meet, the edge of water and land. These are environments that balance dynamic energy with stability. These are environments that balance dynamic energy with stability and support alignment. If this is a left arrow, it is a natural shore. These are organic, natural shore-like environments, untouched beaches, lakesides, or riverbanks. Natural settings with water and land resonate deeply with your body. And on the flip side, we have the right arrow, and these are artificial shores. These are human-made shore-like environments. These are urban waterfronts, piers, or pools. Artificial transitional spaces feel stimulating and supportive.
It can even be an urban not waterfront. If where you are and there's a big change somewhere from where you are to where you view from your apartment, let's say, that may seem like an artificial shore. Just across a cityscape can feel a little bit like a shore depending on where you are. But if there's a railroad track separating you, you actually can even feel that way. You'll notice when you're up looking out a window or what have you. You can sort of feel like it. But it is the artificial aspect of it. These two things, natural and artificial shores, they bring transition just like the thing said, because of these two things coming to meet. These two things that are not the same, they're exact opposites. And just like the six line process, this environment sets up what ultimately becomes not the subjective, not the objective, but neither and both at the same time. That's where shores is. Shores is where so many ideas will come and the final words will get said that put a final cap on the motion and the direction that will be empowered to move in. Shores is where so much of the information will come because the watcher speaks. The listener may have listened, but it still needs the watcher. The watcher and the listener, if you think about it, are basically gate 13 finally speaking through gate 33. Shores is the final completion of the prodigal in a sense, because that's what it does for us. It literally allows us to synthesize the rest of a direction, and it's towards beauty. Nobody every I mean, there's nothing beautiful about There's nothing that's not beautiful about shores. No one says a bad thing because they had to go to the beach. It's just not a thing. It's not a thing. It's like going into a hospital where there's new babies. Nobody goes into a hospital and says, "Oh God, that's an ugly baby." You just don't hear it, because basically there are no ugly babies. There are no awful shores. I guess if it's all polluted and stuff, but mostly, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And by the way, natural shores. A polluted shore would not be natural. So, um, and that's what's so important about us. That's basically where we get headed. We came from the water. And we end up sort of going back to it to be in a transitional symbiosis with it. Notice shores isn't about getting into the water. It's about being back full circle from where we started in a sense. It allows for us to transition. So if you're in shores, just recognize you write good books. You know, you're meant to speak once you're in your right environment. You're meant to tell us what that's like. And you're meant to be a role model of what the watcher is supposed to see, away from hypocrisy and towards being a model of what it is to be yourself in communion with others. Shores represents, in a sense, beauty, our movement towards beauty.
Yeah, and also it's just like this idea. It's like there's the obvious shore of like water, beaches, lakesides, whatnot, and also just like where different environments meet. I've
Yep.
always also heard shores as less literal waterfront, but it could also be where two different types of environments meet. So I have a shores friend who loves to travel, and she loves like geology and how the earth formed and how mountains formed and how this. She's very fascinated with these meeting of different environments and how they got that way.
Well, so this is shores in a nutshell. It's the top binary, and it is the true universalization and then transition into the next creative aspect of whatever's next. Next hexagram, that is, and that's what shores represents.
Perfect, Mosey.
Hmm.
And in conclusion, environment defines the physical and energetic spaces where you thrive. Aligning with your environment's polarity fosters ease and balance. By spending time in spaces that resonate with your design, you support your body's health and enhance digestion, creating a foundation for living authentically in your unique surroundings.
These nodes on our design side, I said it at the beginning, they set up a movement. If you want to look at like everything emanating out of a spot, it everything does not emanate out of the personality, that's for sure. The personality receives it all and lives it out, and then we talk about it an awful lot. So maybe many of our words emanate out over it, but our lives movement emanates from our environment. And I notice environment is sort of gets the least amount of airtime as it relates to the four and the things we do with it and stuff. It does. It seems to get the least airplay, and maybe it's not the sexiest to talk about or something compared to the others. I don't know, but it sets up the master movement of each life and each person, and you're given a pass. Like, it's important to have your environment right from a kid, but as from when you're young, your dietary regimen is far more important, to get right, and the environment will set itself up, and you have to be in your right place by, Saturn. Definitely find your right place by Saturn, but you'll notice your right place is always basically what you had already. Because from the time you come out, you will be setting up a marketplace. I did. I had a marketplace. It was the fact that my parents let me have my friends over. And so I didn't have to ask. And so my right now, widow 3420, was always marching my friends in right up to my mom and dad. This is so and so. Aren't you so happy? I love them and they're my friend. And they just didn't have the will to say, wipe your feet, take off your shoes, do whatever. They just didn't interrupt. And so I got to make a marketplace out of my internal house. It was incredible. And my parents were my biggest commodity. I sold my freedom in the fact that they would give us food and stuff and provide us a doorway out when we need it, all of that stuff, and sanction us as adults to like walk outside. The adults didn't mind, so we're good, that type of thing. They were my main thing that I had, my main resource inside. It was incredible. So you'll be living it out from a young age, and it's going to set your movement. It's going to set your movement inside of your incarnation cross with your profile, all of it. And it contains the master link node. There's a link node that moves the from the south node, which this is of the design, up to the north node of the personality. And it links these two halves. This is the link of pulling these two crystals of consciousness together in our illusion of separateness. So that's I said a bunch of really expensive stuff. Can you say something a little bit less? You know, I
Something
mean,
so
like,
bring it back down to earth a
yeah,
little bit. Yeah.
say something more conversational that you can like say to people in a
So,
checkout line.
I'll see if my fifth line can offer something
Get
practical.
practical. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Environment is cool, and it's as you're saying. Like number one is like get your digestion in order. Like get your digestion in order so that your physical brain is able to take in the correct nutrients. So that's working properly, right? That's what we did last week was going over digestion determination. And then it's like once you're eating correctly, you kind of will naturally find yourself in the correct environment and for your body to be in the physical correct space for that frequency to be right for you. And notice when you're in the correct environment, right? I'm a wide valley environment. When I'm in an open but cocooned area, it's not just wide open where I'm like, ugh, like that feels like super like, exposed to me. But if I'm in a wide forest valley and there's trees on the edge and I'm cocooned inward, it's like it just feels good. Whereas like if it's too open and exposed, or if it's too narrow, or if I'm going up hiking a mountain, it's just disorienting. Like I'm not afraid of heights by any means, but we're hiking up in these mountains and I could just feel a sense of disorientation and incorrect frequency of like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Even if it's cool to see and it's pretty, my body knew it wasn't in the right place. So play around with it, see what your environment is and what frequency that is and how you make it work for you. Because like Danny said, it's like, yeah, you can be up physically in the mountain, or maybe your bedroom is on the second floor.
Literally, in the sense of a little bit of height. Because it's really a sense more than anything. It's not specifically where you are. It's a sense that you're in the right place, and you'll know, especially if you're open G. If you're open G, environment becomes about the most important thing to you. Place, being in the right place. So pay wicked close attention to it. Next time you call in for a reading or whatever, let's parse your environment into your life and see how that's working out for you. By the way, I'll need your help with that because as we go through it, you're the only one that knows what is it I'm talking about. So you got to give me feedback so we see how we're moving with all of that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun thing to play with. And once you find yourself in it and it kind of just unravels itself in front of you and you see where you feel good and where you don't feel good, and then after your environment gets in order, then you kind of naturally move into perspective, right? That's what we'll be talking about next week, or actually in a couple weeks. The next show, we'll be talking about perspective. And it naturally is this process of like, get your food and your brain in order, then you get your physical body in order, then you'll start seeing things correctly, and then your motivation will start developing correctly, so you're acting correctly. Like it's a really whole beautiful process that we get to play around with here.
And then you can see all of this. So, and that's why the movement starts at determination, right? Design, sun, earth, and moves in a horseshoe and ends at personality. Right? That's how we're moving with all of this. Because now that we're done with this, as we move over, and then you can see, we get to view, and we're blind without it. And we don't want to have the constant distraction that view gives us, which we don't receive on the design side. The design side is largely unconditioned, is the thing. It's the thing that's perfect, always screaming at you, saying, "Hey, you're not self is your unawareness of me and trying to pretend I don't exist." That's the simplest way to put that. So environment sets up the way you will be made to see. And what you see ends up being everything because that ends up being the light you have. So environment doesn't get read a lot, but you should really read into it.
Yeah, it's a worthwhile part of your experiment. If you're at that place, like have fun with it, experiment. That's the joy of what we do here with Human Design, where it's just like, I don't know, test it, play around, see what works for you. Like, don't listen to anything we say, test it for yourself and find what does feel good and what doesn't feel good, and live your life accordingly.
What we're going over here, by the way, is what is known as a radical transformation. This is far beyond simply strategy and authority. And if you don't have strategy and authority down, this won't make the sense, even if you think you see it. You'll see certain things, but you've got to get through that part first, or at least have it working for you so you can start to view into all of this. But this becomes just the radicalist of transformation for each of us, each person, one by one. And you simply have it by choosing to come to know it. So come to know it. We'll tell you all about it, in fact.
Absolutely. So if you do want to get a hold of Danny, you can find him at Instagram, Danny Guru, at Danny Guru HD on Instagram. And I just accidentally deleted your email. What is your email?
It's Danny G at DannyGuru.com.
I will pop that up. There we go. Danny G at DannyGuru.com. You can email Danny. You're welcome. Just put in the subject line that you saw him on the show and you wanted to talk to him. If you want to get a hold of me, you can find me at our Instagram at awakenyourhumandesign.com. I'm going to try to be developing that more.
People swamp us. You should swamp us. The level of knowledge that we can pour into your venue for whatever it is you want is like stunning. So our inboxes and or voicemails and or whatever we should hardly be able to keep up with it.
It's good stuff. And if you're ready for it, reach out. If you want to just talk to us, if you want to talk about show stuff, if you want to do a reading, just reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So
yeah, show stuff too. Absolutely.
Yeah,
questions to answer on a show are always good.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, super fun. And so what is it? Next week, we are taking a break because I am out of town, and we will be back on the 17th we'll be continuing our Radical Transformation PHS Rave Psychology series, and we're going to be diving into perspective, which is going to be really fun, and about like seeing the environment correctly. I guess it is, seeing your environment correctly, right?
It's seeing your environment and seeing your path, and then therefore seeing your whole experience. It's so you turn blind to all of that when your environment isn't right. When I say blind, it becomes opaque, confused, and what the keynote is, distracted. Distraction is the bane of the view side of things, and we'll go over that when we get there.
Perfect. So that'll be fun when we get to that. Until then, thank you, Danny. Thank you to everyone who is watching and liking and subscribing, commenting, asking questions. We love it and really, really helps us out. We love having you. And we will catch you next time for another awesome show.
Absolutely. Much love, everyone. Thank you very much.